Hey, this is my video on human population and video explanation for it. So the first question was how and why has human population size and growth rate changed over time? The how, according to the textbook, is it's still increasing very quickly in some, but overall the human population is growing at a slower rate than it was in the mid-20th century, thanks to decrease in birth rates. Why? One of the main reasons that it increased was the Industrial Revolution, which increased food supplies, sanitation, and the advancements in healthcare improved survival. Earth has witnessed yet another surge in human population growth as the improvements of provision of food, healthcare, and sanitation brought by the Industrial Revolution, as mentioned before, has spread from developed countries in the United States to developing ones in India and China. Though advances have enabled people in all countries to live longer, life expectancy in birth has more than doubled since the 1800s, when it was less than 30 years of age. How big is the population today, and where do most people live? Annual growth rates peaked around 1963 at 2.2% and slowly decreased to the level of just over 1%. Though a growth rate of barely more than 1% doesn't sound like much, if our growth rates are the same, by 2100 there would be more than 21 billion people on Earth. What factors affect the growth? Demography is a statistical analysis of populations. Demographers evaluate the metric known as demographic factors. In simple terms, populations grow when births outnumber deaths. So, as we saw in one of the earlier modules of the textbook, factors that favor birth and survival are considered population growth factors. Where growth factors lead to death or reduced reproduction are terms of resistance factors, and the factors that affect birth and death aren't all that different from human populations. In those other species, disease, famine, and predators, or wars in our case, are resistance factors. Access to clean water, nutritious food, and protection from the enemies are examples of growth factors. For humans, a decrease in resistance factors and an increase in growth factors have contributed to our phenomenal population growth. How does age structure influence the growth? So, to predict the population's future growth, demographers use age structure diagrams. These diagrams illustrate how a given population breaks down by age and gender, showing how males and females are found in specific age groups. These data help demographers make predictions about where a population is headed and make inferences about current conditions. For example, population where most young people had great potential for growth, but because many people are childbearing age or younger, population cohort is still or seem to be having children. Population with similar numbers in all age classes is fairly stable because those who were born oppose those who die, and etc. As you see, go back to the slide. Sorry, what the etc. is another example mentioned below. What is the demographic transition? Is why it's important. The demographic transition is a theoretical model that describes the expected drop in once high population growth rates as economic conditions improve the quality of life in its population. It tends to happen as the country's economy changes for pre-industry and post-industrial, when low birth rates and death rates replace high birth rates and death rates. The demographic transition is important because it helps the demographers understand a population's growth patterns and predict future ones. The 4 stages are listed below: pre-industry, industrializing, mature, industrial, and post-industrial. How can addressing social issues help achieve zero population growth? One of the main reasons the textbook mentions is that bringing social justice to women and families so they can better care for themselves and their children. What determines Earth carrying capacity for humans, and can the planet support the current or future projected human population long term? The size of the capacity is determined by a range of forces, including the amount of crucial resources available and the rate at which those resources can be replenished if they are renewable, as well as the rate of resource consumption by population. The amount of waste generated plays a role too. If waste is generated faster, the ecosystem can assimilate it, and the ecosystem will suffer, and the rate of resource replenishment will decrease. In other words, a degraded ecosystem can sustain far fewer people than well-maintained healthy one. Right now, there are close to 8 billion people on the Earth, and at least some experts say that the number already exceeds the planet's carrying capacity, so in that case, we would not have enough room on this earth to support a human population for long term. But in any case, whether we stabilize 10 or 16 billion, somewhere in that range, will depend on how much we can achieve replacement and fertility worldwide. So that's all for the presentation, and that can all be found in chapter 4 of the textbook. Thank you.